Good news you can use when you're home, yeah.
She got the good news you can use. Good news you can use for your life. So listen up, everybody. Listen up, everybody. She got the good news you can use. Good news you can use for your life. If you want to get the info that'll help you throughout your life, yeah.
All right, this is where you will get the good news you can use right here on the Boomer Beat with your host, Beverly Mahone. And this is an ongoing part of my limited series on If I Knew Then, What I Know Now. And today's guest has an illustrious history. Not only a professor, I call him a guru, a doctor, an honorable, all of that. Because he does have quite an extensive past and present. And that leads me to introduce my guest to you, Professor Irv Joyner. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine. And how are you? And thank you for having me.
I am excited that you are here. And you know, this kind of reminds me from back in the day when we were co-hosting a talk show together. Remember that?
I remember back in the day.
Which
wasn't that long ago.
I know, right? All right. So let me put you in the hot seat here. Tell us about your upbringing. Were you born in North Carolina, and how you kind of traveled to get to where you are today?
My family is from North Carolina. The family has been a constant presence in North Carolina since the enslavement period. But I was born in Brooklyn. My mother was a part of the great Black migration of African Americans who, after graduating from high school, went north, where they had an opportunity to obtain a better life, the opportunity to get a decent job. And it was out or following that decision by my mom that she engaged in interactions with my father, and I was born in Brooklyn. And but when it came to my entering grade school, my mother made the decision that she wanted me to come back to North Carolina. And because my grandparents were here, they were willing to serve as substitute parents. And me and my cousin, who was also in a single female-headed household, came to North Carolina, and we were raised by our grandparents during the early years. So my long-term venture in North Carolina began around five years of age, and it has off and on continued up until now.
Have you ever considered how different your life would be had you stayed in New York versus coming to North Carolina?
I've thought about it quite often, and I had the pleasure of returning to school in New York in high school. But as I looked around me over the years, I realized that the best thing that my mother did was to send me to North Carolina, where I was able to obtain an education in what was then called the segregated Black schools, schools operated by African-American leaders, teachers and principals and janitorial staff, surrounded in a community of love, nurtured by the church and a lot of community activities, all supportive of the development of the African-American children who were growing up with me at that time. And it was not until after I had moved back to New York and began school in New York that I recognized the value of the education that I had received, which placed me in a position that I was ahead of similarly situated African Americans in schools in New York. So my foundation, I proudly say, was cemented here in North Carolina in those excellent segregated Black schools, and I celebrate them every chance that I get with the outstanding teachers who were there, who were providing their all to make sure that we were properly prepared to go out and fight the Jim Crow that existed during those days, and then to rise above that situation and make a better life for ourselves.
And I have heard a number of um, people say the same thing that you say, is that growing up in the segregated South, specifically in North Carolina, really helped prepare them better than had they been in a more diverse background. But let me ask you this. You didn't go to an HBCU. Why not?
Well, when I graduated from high school, my ticket to college was basketball, and I was recruited to play basketball by a number of different institutions around the country, and HBCU was not one of them. And I ended up going to upstate New York for my first year of college, and then eventually transferred to Long Island University. And while there, I messed up my knee, which then cut short any basketball aspirations that I had. And I then recognized that I was destined to become a bookworm and to work on the academics. But by then, I had been able to obtain a scholarship situation that allowed me to complete my college degree, which was my goal. So the HBC didn't want me at the time. And so I took the best route available to me that was presented, and it worked out. It worked out well for me and led me into the civil rights movement that I eventually settled in moving forward.
Did you have aspirations to go to the NBA? Did you think that you would be that good enough, or, have you ever reflected on that?
Every basketball player of old and anew have aspirations of going to the NBA. And being in New York City, where we were able to play basketball in Madison Square Garden and to run into all of the top pro athletes all over the place at the Harlem Rutgers tournament, where you would see those stars come out, and you dream about the days that you could be out on the court doing what they were doing, and you knew that you had the capability of doing that. So yeah, that was a dream, and of course that is a very fragile dream, because an injury can take you out, and an injury did take me out of that pursuit. But it was because of that injury, which refocused my life, then more academically bound, that put me in a position that I could go to law school and become the lawyer that I am today. So those
and a fine one, I might say, a very fine one. Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Was Rutgers your first choice?
No, it wasn't. And in fact, I was accepted at St. John's University Law School. And because of my civil rights activities that I was engaged in at the time, I had made friends with a number of people who were connected with Rutgers. And one was the assistant dean at the Rutgers Law School. And after I had been accepted at St. John's, I ran into him at a party. And I was telling him that, well, I'm getting ready to go to law school. And so we talked about it. And he said, look, I'm going to tell you, with your background, with what it is that you want to do with your life, the worst thing that you could can do is to go to St. John's. Call me on Monday, and we will admit you over at Rutgers. And I called him on Monday, and then Rutgers, I became bound to that notion. And I went right on over there, and it was an activist law school where many of the professors were activists and were well known and well girded in civil rights law. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I have long-term friends, connections with the professors there who are still alive. And that has aided me immensely in moving forward with my civil rights background and history in the law.
And speaking of your civil rights background, it is extensive. You have done some fabulous work. Some of it people know about, some don't know about. Looking back at all that you have done, is there a different direction you think you could have gone, or different decisions you could have made that might have made a difference in the way that the whole civil rights movement came to be and is moving forward?
I got involved in civil rights activities when I was at Long Island University. And I was a part of that generation that made the decision that we're going to leave the university system and go fight Jim Crow, to get actively involved in civil rights. So it was probably 5 or 6 years after I dropped out of Long Island University that I made the decision to go to law school. And that decision was made because of my work with the Wilmington 10 down in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I was at the time working with the United Church of Christ Commission for Racial Justice. And I recognized that there was an absence of African Americans who were in the legal profession. And in addition to that, of those who were in the legal profession, there were fewer who were engaged in civil rights activities. And because of that, I made the decision that I wanted to become a lawyer because I wanted to fill the void. I wanted to be there so that when these civil rights cases arose, that I would be in a position that I could handle some of them and seek to make a difference and to challenge legally in court Jim Crow that existed at the time. Segregation was a big chain around our necks. And I knew that unless we unshackle those chains, then the chances for our advancements were nil. And so I made the decision that that's what I was going to do. And I've stuck to that since that time. And my legal career has been dedicated to dealing with civil rights issues, criminal law issues, criminal procedures issues, constitutional law issues, issues affecting race and economic development of underprivileged communities, excluded communities. And so that was the decision that I made, and it has carried me to where I am today.
And speaking of carrying you where you are today, you have been at the North Carolina Central University School of Law since 1982.
Yes.
Was NCCU your first choice?
Well, again, that wasn't really a choice. I was practicing law in Raleigh and had a practice that kept me going all around the state, representing people in a variety of cases. When the dean at the law school, who was a friend of mine, along with the North Carolina Association of Black Lawyers that I became president of, asked me if I would be willing to teach a course at North Carolina Central, which I consented to do, and immediately fell in love with the teaching. It was not something that I had on my plate. But once I started, I was bitten by the bug and intoxicated with the idea of teaching and helping young people navigate their way through the law school experience and then utilizing those skills to help others. And so I've been dedicated to that proposition, which also allowed me to continue working in a number of different civil rights cases through the years. So again, it was the Lord guiding me to where I needed to be and placing me around the people who could help me to achieve what I consider to be my purpose and focus and mission in life. And I have enjoyed it, and I have been rewarded in so many ways by the decision and the opportunity to become a part of the North Carolina Central University School of Law faculty. But for that, I never would have met you and enjoyed all of the things that we were able to enjoy together.
That is so true. And those rewards include being named Lawyer of the Year. That is an awesome, awesome accomplishment. Okay, so as we wrap up here, what words of wisdom would you like to impart with the younger viewers of my podcast?
Well, I think it's the notion of don't fight the movement. The Lord places us in places that we need to be, and surrounds us with people that we need to be able to advance and to work through the mission and purpose that we have in life. And what we have to do is to discover that mission and purpose, and then let the Lord take its toll to lead us to where we need to be. And in that sense, I said, don't fight the feeling. If there are things that we are have a burning desire to deal with, we ought to deal with them and take them and follow that path, because that is the path that we need to take to ensure that our mission in life is satisfied or at least pursued. We need to take away ourselves and allow ourselves to be led to the truth that we need to be a part of.
Wow, that's deep. I'll receive that, and I mean, I definitely receive that. Thank you so much, Professor Joyner, for taking time out to share your "If I Knew Then What I Know Now" experience. And remember this, folks. You have gifts to give to the world. So find your own unique voice and prosper. And it doesn't matter how old you are or how young you are. And stay empowered along your journey. See ya.
Thank you. All right.
Good news you can use for your life. If you want to get the info that'll help you throughout your life. Yeah.